Hi, my name is Megan.
And I'm Alyssa, and today we're going to talk about the mythological background of the Trojan War. Both the Odyssey and the Iliad have their foundation in the Trojan War, so it's important to understand it before understanding the mythology in these epics.
So the Trojan War has its own background in a story called the Judgment of Paris. The Judgment of Paris begins with a wedding between two important people. So all of the deities and immortals have been invited except for one goddess, the goddess of discord, whose name was Eris.
So Eris was pretty upset that she didn't get invited to the wedding, so being the goddess of discord that she is, she threw a golden apple into the crowd at the wedding reception with the words, "To the fairest," written on it.
Now this apple was immediately claimed by three of the goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite.
Hera is Zeus's wife and the queen of the gods.
Athena is Zeus's daughter and the goddess of war.
And Aphrodite is another of Zeus's daughters and the goddess of love.
Now, all three of these goddesses clearly wanted the apple, so they appealed to Zeus to make a decision between the three of them of who would receive it, but Zeus made the smart decision not to choose favorites.
Instead, he sent Hermes, the messenger god, to find Paris of Troy so that Paris could make the decision for him.
So the goddesses bribed Paris so that he would choose one of them as the fairest. Hera bribed him with power, saying that he would be the king over the known world.
Athena promised him victory in war over the Greeks.
And Aphrodite promised that he would have the most beautiful woman in the world.
Just like any other young man, he definitely chose the Aphrodite and the most beautiful woman.
Now, the most beautiful woman in the world at this time was Helen, but surprise, Helen was already married.
Helen was married to Menelaus, who was the king of Sparta, a Greek city-state.
Now, to address this small issue of Helen already being married, Aphrodite made Paris irresistibly handsome before sending him to Sparta, where Helen then fell madly in love with him, and they took off together.
When Menelaus found out that his wife had not only just left him, but also his city, he was pretty mad about it, so he followed Helen and Paris back to Troy with an entire Greek army.
And thus the Trojan War began.
Now that we've talked about the mythological background of the Trojan War, we can move on to some of the key heroes of the war. Starting with the Greeks, we have Achilles, Menelaus, and Agamemnon.
So Achilles was the greatest Greek hero of the Trojan War, and he is interesting because he was almost immortal, and being almost immortal because his mother, when he was young, decided to dip him into the river Styx to make him invulnerable, except apparently she forgot that she needed to dip in the part that she was holding on to, his heel, so that part did not become invulnerable, and therefore we get the term Achilles' heel.
His greatest contribution to the Trojan War was when he killed Hector, the great Trojan hero of the war, and then proceeded to drag him around behind his chariot for a couple days. He was then killed by an arrow shot from Paris's bow and guided by Apollo to his heel and his one vulnerable spot.
Then we have Menelaus, and as we already know, Menelaus was the king of Sparta, a Mycenaean or Greek city-state, and he was also the husband of Helen, and he essentially sparked the Trojan War by going after his wife.
And finally, we have Agamemnon, who was the king of Argos, another Greek or Mycenaean city-state. He was killed following the war along with all of his loved ones as he returned to Argos.
Now we'll transition to talk about the Trojan heroes of the Trojan War, and for them we have Priam and Hector.
Priam is the king of Troy and the father of Paris and Hector, and he is killed by Achilles' son during the Trojan War.
And finally we have Hector, who was the son of Priam and the greatest hero of the Trojan side of the Trojan War. And as we already know, he was brutally mutilated by Achilles following his death.
And that's the Trojan War in a nutshell.
So lesson learned, if you aren't invited to the wedding, just don't.